Welcome to the Policeman's Annuity and Benefit Fund of Chicago Retirement Seminar. The purpose of the fund is to provide retirement, survivors, and disability benefits to sworn police members and their spouses and children. The president of the fund is Tom Banya. The executive director is Aaron King. My name is Jackie Robinson. I am a retirement counselor, and Gladys Bernal is the benefit analyst manager, and Kate Hilton is benefit manager. As a retirement counselor, I get many questions. The most popular question is, when should I retire? And actually, it's funny because it really is a personal question. There are a number of factors to consider when retiring. You have to think about your age, the number of years of service. Finances are important. Can you financially retire at this time? And the biggest factor today is health care. How are you going to pay for health care? What I can tell you factually is you have to be 50 years old and you must be vested in the fund. By vested, I mean you must have 10 years of service in the pension fund in order to collect an annuity. So if you are 50 years old and you have more than 10 years of service, you can apply for a pension and collect a monthly annuity payment. The second biggest question that we get all the time is, well, what date should I retire? Again, it is personal, but I can tell you for practical reasons, the most practical date to retire is the 15th of every month. The 15th of every month is only practical because it is the shortest period between the last day of employment and your first annuity payment. From the 15th, if you retire on the 15th of the month, you can expect your first annuity payment to be paid the last business day in the following month. So that's about a 6-week period. If you retire after the 15th of the month, you can expect your annuity payment to be paid almost 8 to 10 weeks out. For example, if your last day of work is June 15, 2021, your benefits are calculated and presented to the July 2021 board meeting, and your first payment will be paid the last business day in July, which is July 31st. That's about 6 weeks. If your last day of employment is June 30th, you can expect your pension payment to be paid about 8 to 10 weeks out. Your benefits will be calculated and presented to the August 2021 board meeting, and payment will be made on August 31st. So again, if you use the 15th of the month as your last day of work, you can expect to receive your payment at the end of the following business month. What documents does the fund need? When you are ready to retire, there are a number of documents we require. One is the PAR form. We must have the approved PAR form, and it must be signed by you and your commanding officer. The PAR form is also known as the retirement submission receipt. Both of them can be obtained from the CLEAR system. Again, it's really important that they're both, the status must say approved, and that they're both are signed by you and your commanding officer. Secondly, we need documentations of life changes. That's certified marriage certificates, certified birth certificates for spouse and children. And if you or your spouse has ever been married before, we do need divorce decrees and or death certificates. And we also like to have photocopies of the dependent's Social Security cards. Certified documents must be county issued and must contain the seal from the county. How do I apply for annuity? In order to apply for your retirement, you must contact the fund 30 to 45 days prior to your last day of work. You can call the fund at 312-744-3891 or send us an email at retirement@chipabf.org. When you contact us at that time, we will let you know again what you need to provide and what the next steps are. In the event that you need to come to the fund office, we are located at 221 North LaSalle Street, suite number 1626. At this time, I am going to turn the presentation over to my colleague, Gladys Bernal.
Hi everyone, I'm Gladys. I am the calculations manager I will go over what a Tier 1 formula annuity is all about. This presentation does have, we'll go over lost time, over how we calculate your pension, and there are other calculations that will come into play, but I'll go over that as we go through the slideshow. So as of now, how is my annuity calculated? This is for Tier 1 and it's a formula annuity. This applies to members that were worked with CPD prior to January 1st, 2011. They have accumulated more than 20 years of service. The formula annuity is based on your age, service, and average salary of the highest 4 consecutive years of the last 10 years of service, which for most of you will be the last 4 years of service unless there was some demotion at the end of your career. The annuity is effective at your 50th birthday or your date of resignation, whichever is later. The way to see it, if you hit the 20-year mark, you will get 50% of a 4-year average salary. After that, after you hit your 20 years, any fraction thereof above 20 years will give you another 2.5%. Meaning, let's say if you go 20 years and a day, it'll be 22.5%. I will go more in detail about this. I also know that a lot of talk is about the 29 and a day to max you out at 75%. So we will touch upon that in the next slides. So other types of annuity that we will not go over this presentation, but that we do calculate at the pension fund have to do with Tier 1 members that have less than 20 years of service. Anyone that has more than 10 years but less than 20 years of service may be eligible to receive a money purchase annuity, which is not based on rates, but rather the amount of money that you contributed to the fund, and it's a little bit more complicated. If anyone falls under that, feel free to give us a call and we'll go over that with you. Also, if there's a member that has less than 20 years of service, but are being mandatorily retired, that's another type of calculation that we could go over with you in more detail. Tier 2 annuities have to do with any member that started with CPD on January 1st, 2011 and after that. For those, we also are not including them in this presentation, but feel free to contact us. The number is written below, and you could always call the calculations department. For Tier 1 formula annuities, your calculation is based on 2 things: the final average monthly salary times the service credit multiplier. Here is a sample of annuity benefits to show you what a difference it makes to stay 20 years versus 25 years versus 30 years. It is up to the member's discretion and personal options in terms of employment to see if they would benefit to stay longer. But this is just to give you a glimpse of how big of a gap it would be from getting 50% only of a 4-year average versus getting 75% of a 4-year average. The way we look at your final average monthly salary is we look at your last 10 years of service, take the 4 highest consecutive years of salary, and do an average of that. This is based on wage grade and step rate. So if you by any chance had lost time that might have moved your step up forward, that will impact your final average monthly salary, which we often refer to as your FAS. When we calculate that average, we also include paid duty availability. If exempt, you must have been compensated 3 years out of the last 4 years based on the exempt rank salary. If you do not complete those 3 years, let's say you were promoted to commander but only had 1 year moving up from lieutenant, then you would get refunded the commander rates back and you would have only lieutenant rates for your pension. If you have any questions about the exempt rank refunds, please feel free to give us a call. So what does their service credit entail? Service credit is any time you worked as a police officer. This includes also time that you might have purchased, like prior military time or prior Cook County time. That type of service that you purchase is also counted towards your pension. All service requests must be approved by the board and the trustees and paid prior to retirement. There are some types of services that you have to buy within 2 years of getting approved. That's called portability, and you could always give us a call once you've been approved if you have any questions or how you would go about and apply for it in the first place. We also take into account paid duty disability and ordinary disability time. So that's time that comes into play once you've been approved for disability by the pension fund. That's past your 1 year of medical. If you're unable to come back to work and you go to the fund to petition the board for more disability time. That's also counted towards your service time. Service credit does not include any unpaid time, such as unpaid leaves of absences or suspensions. I'll go a little bit into more detail about what lost time implies in a couple of slides. The maximum annuities reflected on this slide will show you how your annuity will increase even if you hit the 30-year mark. A lot of people think that once you hit the 29 and a day, your annuity will never change again, but that's not quite correct. What happens is, as your salary increases based on the contract changes, your average salary will also increase, and therefore your final annuity amount will increase. Now, if you look at those amounts, they might not be much of a difference there, but you also have to take into consideration that these numbers are based on old contract rates. And once the final contract is completed and submitted to us, then the gap between the amounts may be different, so it may be something to consider even if you're at 30 years. So we're going to go over an example of what it would look like for a member to retire. We had a member that was hired on June 2nd, 1996. If we have the member retire at June 15, 2021, close of business, thus his or her annuity would be effective the next day because this member would be over 50 at time of retirement with a birth date of July 19, 1965. The way we're going to look at this member's pension is we're going to look at their last 4 years of service, and you will see all the rates are based on the $7,779.50 because the contract has not been finalized. Once the contract is finalized and we have the different rates for 2017, 18, 19, 20, and 21, then we will update those and the member will receive a retroactive payment that will bring it up to date to the new annuity. But in this case, we take the last 48 months of this member's amounts, which will total a $373,416. To that, we will also add the duty availability of 48 months. And once we have the total pensionable salary of $387,816, then we're going to divide that by 48 months. The 4-year average for this member will be $8,079.50. Once we have that 4-year average, we will take a look at the member's service time. So if the member was hired in June 15, 2021, we see that he started in June 2nd, 1996. That puts the member at 25 years and 13 days. Now we have to take into account that the member might have had lost time. In this case, the member had 11 days of lost time. Once we take that away, the net service of the member is 25 years and 2 days. That will put the member at a 26-year multiplier. The member will get 50% for the 20 years, and they would get another 15% for an additional 6 years past the 20-year mark, making it at 65% multiplier. As I touched upon on the other slides, we do take into account lost time. Lost times are any times when you did not get paid by the Chicago Police Department, meaning suspensions, personal unpaid leaves of absences. For military times, there's instances when you go on tour and they only pay you a portion of what you're getting paid because they offset what you're getting paid based on what the military is giving you in salary. This we don't control. We don't know how they calculate each member, but what we do is we compare what another police officer with the same title, same start date would have been getting, and see how much lost time you have accrued. We count that as lost time. Once you come back from tour, you could always give us a call and let us know that you came back to check on your lost time, whether there is some time accrued during your military service, and we could let you know how much that would be. That is time that you could pay only contributions without interest. Also, we deal with settlement agreements. Sometimes people will get suspended and will go into trying to settle the fact that they shouldn't have been suspended, and they do get a settlement that will cover the amount of lost time. Most of the time, we don't get that paperwork, so if you're ever going through something like that, please make sure to save your documentation. Typically, the city will send us the 9% of the grievance settlement if it's pensionable time, if it's salary or duty availability. But when we don't, we try to contact the city or CPD to try and get those documents. Sometimes we're successful getting them, sometimes we're not. So it's always helpful for the member to retain those. So in case the city is unable to help us, maybe the officer may go through the trustees directly and the board and try to get permission to purchase that or make that time allowable. Based on the previous example we were giving of the member retiring, we were saying that the member's average salary of 48 months was $8,079.50. The service credit, or the multiplier that we used, was based on 26 years, which was a 65% multiplier. Once we take those two and multiply them, the member's gross pension payment would be of $5,251.68 per month. This is the gross amount before any taxes or health care amounts are being taken away. But this amount is also going to help us figure out what the cost of living adjustment will be after the member retires. A lot of people refer to it as the COLA. So when you retire, the current law stands that if you were born before January 1st, 1966, you will get 3% COLA based on your initial amount for a lifetime. If you were born after 1966, you would get 1.5%, and that would be active when you're 60 years old or on your first anniversary date, whichever is later. So in this case, in our example, the member would be getting 3% at 157.55. And for him or her, this would be applicable on their 55th birthday or their first anniversary date of their annuity, whichever came later. So this is what I was talking about in terms of the cost of living adjustments, how they work out. If you were born before January 1st, 1966, it's 3% of the base annuity amount. It's not compounded, and it will be paid out on your 55th birthday or your first anniversary date of your retirement, whichever comes later. If you were born on or after January 1st, 1966, it's 1.5% of the base annuity, first of the month following attainment of age 60 or your first anniversary date of your retirement, whichever comes later. This law was recently passed. We do get a lot of questions about when it will change again, and that's something that is put up for debate downstate. So I would always suggest to keep in touch with your unions to see if there's any pending laws to be passed. The last time they passed it was, I believe, in 1996, so it takes a while for them to pass any laws this way. And we also deal with spousal annuities in the fund. So if you're a Tier 1 member, and God forbid something were to happen to you, your spouse would be entitled to half of what you would be making at time of death. This also means that if you had gotten several COLAs, then those COLAs would be divided up for your spousal annuity as well. So based on the example that we had gone in the previous slides, the member had gotten $5,251.68. If the member had been able to get 2 COLAs at least before their death, they would have gotten $566.78 at time of death, and the spouse would be entitled to half of that amount. Now, if you are single, divorced, or widowed at time of retirement, we will go over that in the next slide, and I will turn it back to Jackie.
Okay, as Gladys said, if you are single, divorced, or widow or widower at the time of retirement, you are entitled to receive a refund of all of the money that you put into the fund for a spouse. Every pay period, you contribute 9% to the pension fund. Of that 9%, 7% is set aside for you, the retiree, 1.5% is set aside for your spouse, and the remaining 0.5% is set aside for future increases. At retirement, if you are not married, the 1.5% that has accumulated over your CPD career will be refunded to you. Based on your years of service and how long your years of service and how much you've been paid over the years, that refund could range from $20,000 to $40,000. At retirement, we do talk about the distributions. There are two types of distributions. You can request that your refund is paid out in a lump sum, in which case the fund is required to withhold a mandatory 20% for federal tax, or you can request that the refund is rolled over to another qualified retirement plan. In any case, due to the Pension Protection Act, you as a public safety officer are not subject to the IRS 10% penalty for early distribution. One thing you should know is if you do take the spousal refund and you should marry in the future, in order for your future spouse to collect a pension, you must pay that refund back within 1 year from the date of marriage in order for your future wife to collect a pension. Another plan that's managed by the retirement board is the ordinary death benefit. The ordinary death benefit is funded by active members. Each pay period, active officers contribute $1.25 to a pool of money that is set aside for survivors. Upon your death, whomever you have designated as the primary beneficiary will receive that benefit. In the event that the primary beneficiary dies, then your contingent beneficiary will receive a benefit. So it's very important that you make sure that you have a beneficiary form on file with the pension board. That form can be changed at any time, and we definitely will bring it up during the retirement application process. The value of that benefit for active officers starts at $12,000 for active officers that are age 49 and younger. At 50 years old, the value is reduced by $400, and it continues to be reduced each year after that. At retirement, the value is fixed at $6,000. Again, you can leave the death benefit to whomever you like. If you do choose to leave it to a trust fund, you have to remember to turn in a certificate of trust. And at death, it's important that there is a separate tax ID number set up for the trust. Benefits. The Chicago Benefit Office manages all of the benefits, even the health insurance for retirees. The fund does not have any authority to make any decisions on your retiree health insurance. When you come to the fund for retirement, the fund will give you a medical enrollment form to sign. That form is sent over to the Benefit Management Office. The only function that the fund has in relation to your medical benefits is the fund will set up your annuity distribution to deduct your health care premium. All other issues regarding your health care should be conducted with the CBO. If there's questions about your new cards, or if there's questions about coverage or claims or adding or removing a dependent from your insurance, all of that must be handled with the CBO. Now, the cost of health care benefits for retirees. Currently, officers that are between the age of 60 and 65, regardless of your rank, you're entitled to free health insurance. The stipulation is you must submit your retirement papers 30 days prior to the effective retirement date, meaning that you must submit a PAR form 30 days prior to your retirement date. If you are an officer between the age of 55 and 59 and you are below the rank of sergeant, you are entitled to health insurance at 2% of your annuity payment. The stipulation is you must file for retirement before October 1 of this year in order to retire next year and be eligible for the health insurance. Again, if you are 55 to 59, below the rank of sergeant, and you're interested in participating in the medical insurance, you must submit your PAR form before October 1 of this year in order to retire next year between January 1 and 12/31 of 2021. If you are a sergeant, lieutenant, or captain between the age of 55 and 59, your health insurance is 2% of your annuity payment. Stipulation, you must file for retirement 30 days prior to an effective retirement date between May 1st and December 31st. Again, if you are a sergeant, lieutenant, or captain and you want to participate in the health insurance, you must submit a PAR form 30 days before retiring between May 1st and December 31st. Now, there's been a lot of discussion about contract changes. To my knowledge, the contract changes that are coming has nothing at all to do with officers below the rank of sergeant. Again, if you're an officer below the rank of sergeant, you should continue to follow the aforementioned parameters. Again, if you're 60 or older, you get the health insurance free. If you're between 55 and 59, you get the health insurance at 2% of your annuity cost. But it is very, very important that you submit your PAR form before October 1 of this year in order to retire next year between January 1 and 12/31, okay? For sergeants, lieutenants, and captains, there are changes to your contract. What we do not know is when those changes will take effect. We do know the new rates. If you are 63 to 65, you are entitled to free health insurance. If you are 60 to 62, your new rate will be 1.5% of your annuity payment. And if you are 55 to 59, your new rate will be 3.5% of your annuity payment. Free health care ends the earlier of the death of the retiree or once the retiree becomes Medicare age. And Medicare age is 65. When free health care ends, that means that the city will no longer provide any coverage for you or your dependents. Due to the Underwood litigation, the courts have ordered that effective as of January 1, 2020, the pension fund must pay a health care subsidy. In order to qualify for the subsidy, you must be a retired officer collecting an annuity payment. You must have been hired prior to April 4, 2003, and you must be a retired officer participating in a group health insurance plan where the fund is deducting the health care premium from your monthly annuity payment. Again, if you are a retired officer and you meet all three criteria, then you are entitled to receive an additional $55 if you are non-Medicare or $21 if you are Medicare in your per month. The additional funds will be included in your monthly annuity payment. Pension Protection Act allows for an exclusion of health insurance premiums from your taxable income. This exclusion only applies to retired public safety officers, and the total amount or the maximum amount that you can deduct from your taxable income is $3,000. The other caveat is that you must be paying your health insurance premiums from a retirement plan. Again, if you are a public safety officer paying your health care premiums from a retirement plan, you can deduct up to $3,000 from your taxable income. This only applies to public safety officers. Eligible premiums would be your would be your health care premiums or premiums for dental or vision. Additional comments?
All right, so some of the additional comments we would like to go over with you have to do with some of the questions that we get by members to the fund, one of which has to do with the retroactive salary adjustments based on the new contract changes that come about. So unfortunately, sometimes we have to wait a few years in order for the contracts to be finalized. And in those cases, once the contract is finalized, the city will pay the member the difference in salary rates, and they will send the pension fund 9% of whatever salary and duty availability was corrected. Once the pension fund gets that 9%, then we reevaluate the member's pension. Sometimes for sergeants, captains, and lieutenants, they tend to be, I don't know, about 300 to 350 people that we have to do manually, so it'll take a couple of months. The longest wait is for D1s to D3 paid as, because we have more than 1,000 manual calculations to do. So once we receive that money, we go back to the beginning of the retro period and start fixing any calculations. The best thing I can do is call us if you have any questions on this, or if you want to see where you stand in terms of when your retro will be calculated. But just make sure that we will pay you a retroactive payment that will correct your pension from the very beginning. We also recommend for people to try and use a retirement calculator on our PABF website. That calculator is more for people that have a very straightforward service time. People that have a lot of lost time or that bought prior service may not benefit from this calculator. But if you don't have that much lost time and have been in the same job title for a long period of time, that would help you so you could play around with different retirement dates. If you have any questions on that calculator, we could always help you out. We also are going to work on a new website that will help possibly do a retirement calculator for Tier 2 members. At the moment, we don't have that yet, but Tier 2 members who would like to know what they would be getting, they are free to call us and we will calculate something manually for you at this time. We also deal with what we call QUILDROs in our office. It's a Qualified Illinois Domestic Relations Order. This comes into play when members are going through legal separations or divorces. This is a judgment. The member has to go through court for the judge to let us know what the spouse would be entitled to, whether it has to do with money from their pension or their refundable spousal amount. We have no say. We do not calculate this in-house. What we do for the member is we calculate what the retirement estimate would be for them and how much they would be getting or how much they've contributed to the fund to help them out in terms of calculating this when going to court. But once the judge decides how to separate it, we'll process the QUILDRO in our office and separate the funds accordingly. We also deal with reversionary annuities. This is not something that is typically chosen by many people, but it is an option for members to do. So when you come in to apply for retirement, a reversionary annuity gives the member the possibilities of deducting some of their pension, so that when they pass away, their spouse would get a higher pension in lieu. So this is something that is an option. People sometimes see it beneficial when the member may be ill and they know that they might not have a lot of time. It's a good idea to maybe possibly lower their annuity, so then they might increase their spousal annuity, but it's up to the member's discretion. Also, we would like to point out that the state of Illinois doesn't have state tax on pension, but other states do. So when retiring, you have to consider that in case you plan to move from the state of Illinois. We could always talk to you, have the payroll department speak to you in terms of what taxes might come from each state, or you could look those up online. I'm sure the IRS will be able to provide something in terms of each state and what the different taxes are. Each state is different. So all I can say is for Illinois, they don't have state tax. Also, I would like to summarize that whenever you have a question, feel free to give us a call. Sometimes there's misinformation given, so it's better sometimes to hear it from us. We're always available. Also, you could email us at retirement@chipabf.org 30 to 45 days prior to your retirement date, so we could get the ball rolling on our end, so we could get your documents sent to your email. You could fill them out, get them notarized on your end, and send them back in. Make sure that you gather all necessary certified documents like marriage certificates, birth certificates for your spouse or your children, social security numbers. We don't need the cards, but we do need the numbers to put them in our system. Make sure that once your application is processed, you send it over to us, and we will process it in the next board meeting according to your termination date. Watch out for your award letter. Your award letter will be placed in the mail to let you know your approval by the board and how much your pension will be and your cost of living adjustments. And we'll also let you know if you're eligible for the death benefit, who your beneficiaries will be. So always keep an eye out. We always recommend that you use direct deposit simply because it's the fastest way you will get paid. We do have members that do want the physical check, but we always recommend that direct deposit is always the best way to get your pension the soonest, especially given the circumstance with COVID that mail is delayed. What to do after you retire, we always recommend that you keep your current address and phone number on file with the fund. If you're active, we get updates from the city letting us know of your current address and phone number. So if you're active, you could go to CPD and get that updated that way. But if you're retired, we have no idea if you move or change your phone number. So it's always good for you to put it in paper, make sure you sign it and send it in. We will verify your signature and then update your address and phone number accordingly. Always update us on life events. We try to make sure that your file is as current as possible. If there's divorces, marriages, anything like that, feel free to send us the documentation. We will put it in the file. We like to see originals for the most part. COVID, we're making certain exceptions for people, but if you could get us the certified copies, we will take a look at them, take a look at the seal, and then send back the originals to you. And last but not least, we would like to thank you for all your service. We get to see a little bit behind what's going on with the members and all the hard work that you put in and all the things that you have to deal with in terms of disability. So we appreciate you and we thank you and enjoy your retirement.